Broads Media.
Yo, I am pissed! And before we talk about Hassan Reddick no longer being here, Coffee with Broads is back, baby, every Monday and Thursday morning at 11 a.m. All right, so if you're looking forward to it, it's for members only. The information is down below in the description. $4.99 a month, you're getting Coffee with Broads twice a week. There's nothing sweeter. You also get access to our Discord channel. That link is down below, too. If you want to join, let's do it. Thank you all so much for the wild and crazy support, and enjoy the show. What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. I don't like what Howie Roseman did on Friday, and he knew you weren't going to like it either. That's why he decided to tell everybody Friday in the middle of the Phillies game, when everybody was disturbed by the disgrace that was. Come on, man. During WIP's broadcast of opening day, nobody could react legitimately until the following week begins. Howie knew exactly what he was doing. It was very methodical. They didn't just happen to call Joe Douglas and the New York Jets Friday afternoon and say, you know what? Yeah, let's do this now. And then they decided, yep, here's the terms. It'll be a draft pick in the year 2098. It'll be maybe a second-round pick, conditionals to it, conditional pick. We'll see what happens. All right, let's do it. No, man, they had this thing squared away days and days before they announced it, but it was all about let's make sure we lessen the blow because they were aware that they were losing a premier pass rusher and their best defensive player, which really does hurt my excitement because you got to realize when you have the season you did last year and you lose Jason Kelsey and you lose Fletcher Cox, it's hard to get the fan base back on your side as quickly as they did. But to their credit, they got us super pumped up. Saquon Barkley, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio. All right, you bring in a Bryce Huff, you get Josh Sweat back, and by the way, your owner not too long ago said this about Haason Reddick, quote, "It'll play itself out in a very good way." Hold on a second. In a very good way. It's not maybe a second-round pick years from now. And if he is going to get you back a second-round pick in return, that means this dude balled out for the Jets. And if your mission and your objective is to be the best team in the NFC and to compete for a Super Bowl, win another championship, then if he balls out, you benefit more from having him on this team, doing it here in an Eagles uniform at the Link compared to doing it in the Jets uniform up at MetLife. So I think this is a disaster unless Howie Roseman somehow brings in another game wrecker premier talent at the position, but I don't anticipate that happening. He thinks Nolan Smith will rise to the occasion. I don't know if Nolan Smith is even going to have more than 5.5 sacks. If I set the number right now, and this is just me making up my own betting line here at Broads Sportsbook, okay, and I said 5.5 sacks for Nolan Smith, I'm putting my entire savings account on the under. That's how much I think the under would be in play, and that's not gonna. You have to produce what Haason Reddick produced blindfolded. He has a bad season, he gets 11 sacks. Bad season, 11 sacks. You don't realize what you're letting walk out the door. And here's another big-time question mark. It's not as if the Jets signed him to a big deal. So are they going to get the luxury of working with him on a year where he is going to get a contract afterwards, a prove-it deal type of situation where they are going to have him play motivated in a different city with the chance to get paid afterwards? And they're going to get the luxury of a $14 million cap, not ending up extending it. Now, maybe they do work out a deal in the very near future here and things change, but if you're looking at what the Eagles paid Bryce Huff, which is $17 million a year, If Haason Reddick wants 25, the difference in 7-8 mil between Bryce Huff and Haason Reddick is worth it to keep one of your best pass rushers. I don't think you realize what you're losing. With Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, and Bryce Huff, you have 4 complementary pieces. They like that kid Bron too, but Bron's not changing what I think this team could be and the idea of being a great football team. He's just a random guy. So at the end of the day, you have, I'd say Josh Sweat is a starter. Bryce Huff is a complimentary piece. Brandon Graham is on his last wheel. And who else? Nolan Smith is an unproven unknown that has a lot to go here. And I don't think that he's going to be a powerhouse. You lose a game record that teams put on film and say, we can't have him beat us. This guy can get you 30 sacks in 30-plus games. That's outrageous. You don't just find a way to get that in your NovaCare complex, so when it's here, you don't let them out of your sight. So to pick Josh Sweat or Bryce Huff over him is a disgrace, and you're devaluing the importance of what Hassan Reddick provides. And don't tell me you're scared of his age, because at 29, 30, 31, you're not signing him to a 7-year contract extension. You made plenty of moves this offseason to indicate you're still going for it. So giving Hassan Reddick some money for a couple of years to go for it with him at his current stage of his career, I don't anticipate a drop-off where he gets you 6 sacks next season, 7 sacks next season. And you know what? I saw a tweet from Derek Gunn. And this tweet was on March 27th, so a few days ago. But he says, Eagles are still deciding on what to do about Hassan Reddick's situation. He still wants more money than the Eagles are willing to pay. As of now, if he were to return to the Eagles, he would play for what his contract currently states. So if you gave me an option where they traded him to the Jets for a third that maybe could be a second years down the road, or you go all in and you have an awesome rotation with the nice complementary pieces that I just brought up, it's not that they're bad players, but they have specific roles. If you ask Josh Sweat to be more than what he's capable of doing, you're going to fail. You even actually saw a part of that last year with Haason Reddick here. So remove Haason Reddick from the equation, it's only going to get nastier and probably uglier for Josh Sweat, who cannot play a ton of snaps or else he falls apart significantly. Same probably will be said about Bryce Huff, because sure, he could pin his ear back and go, playing 42% of the snaps, and Bryce Huff is a good player. He's going to have sacks this season, but if he plays more snaps, is he going to have the same level of impact? Will he make the same level of impact if he doesn't have Haason Reddick on the field to apply pressure to the other team's offensive line? There's no fear the same way that there's fear in Haason Reddick right now. Decent players, okay players, NFL caliber players, but when you are trying to seriously win something and you have the aspirations to go win a championship, you need game-changing, game-wrecking talents, and you lost that big time on your defensive staff here. And it's ludicrous to me. Absolutely ludicrous. So if you gave me 2 options, you trade him for a second-round pick, or he comes back and plays with 1 year left on his deal, which he might end up doing with the New York Jets anyway, which Joe Douglas would have just absolutely destroyed Howie Roseman and pantsed him at his own game. This is the type of stuff that the Eagles do. DeAndre Swift comes in, hey, let's have a big, massive year, and then you can go get your money elsewhere. They did that with C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the early stages of when he was here his first go around. Let's get him in here. All right. The New Orleans Saints don't want to pay him. All right, let's figure it out. That's what Howie does. And now Joe Douglas, who learned from Howie, is doing it and playing Howie's own game with Howie Roseman. And if the Jets do end up giving him money, good, it's a smart move. You should pay guys like Haason Reddick. It doesn't seem to me, from all the reporting, that Haason Reddick is asking to reset the market and demanding this insane amount of cash. He's asking asking to get paid market value. And if someone is so good enough to get paid market value, that's fine. Resetting the market, being the highest paid guy, wanting the fat bag, and that's the only thing on your mind, that's different than what it seems Haason Reddick wants. Haason Reddick wants fair pay. There's a difference between resetting the market and fair pay. If someone's asking for fair pay, then let Josh Sweat get the fuck out of here. Let somebody else get out of here. I'd rather have Haason Reddick for 2 years than Bryce Huff at his age now for X amount of years. You're devaluing what Haason Reddick is, and I think Howie Roseman screwed this thing up. I was on WIP last night, and after we got through the initial Phillies reaction, we did open up the discussion for the Eagles and brought this very same topic up, and the amount of people that said, let Howie cook, let Howie go, he probably has something up his sleeve. I hope he has something up his sleeve, and if that happens to be the case, then I'll say, okay, good stuff. But more times than not, if you're bringing in a premier player, they're going to get a premier amount of money. That's just what it is. And I think they completely butchered this, whether they think Nolan Smith is better than he is, whether they think Bryce Huff could do more with more snap counts. You don't just replace Haason Reddick, though, and the emphasis that goes on him. If you're a team playing against the Eagles, you highlight Haason Reddick big time, and you make it known that he cannot be getting to you. You have to be cautious of where he is at all times. You don't have to be cautious of Nolan Smith at all times. You don't have to be cautious of Josh Sweat at all times. When he hits a wall, he flat out becomes irrelevant. And we saw that happen last season. So yes, I'm very, very irritated for sure. And that's where I'm at with it. The whole ahead of the curve thing, the Eagles are always ahead of the curve. So you got to give them time to let this thing play out. Okay, but all I can do is react right now, and this team is worse today than they were last year, and they struggled getting to the quarterback last season. So they struggled with him, and that's not saying that Haason Reddick was an issue. I didn't think Haason Reddick was your issue on defense last year. There were 5 billion reasons. Matt Patricia, Sean Desai, Howie Roseman. You had no safeties in there. Bradbury was a piece of burnt toast that was getting crushed by any wide receiver who ever laced up cleats and got exposed at will. So there were a lot of reasons why your team is significantly better with Haason Reddick than without Haason Reddick. And we're going to learn that real quick, unless they find a way to improve in other ways. And, I don't think that they're going to find any sort of edge rusher that brings what Haason Reddick brings to the table. So Howie butchered this thing, even dating back to last season. This isn't just a right now contract discussion. This was known when Haason was originally drafted here. And look, we don't live in a world, or signed here, excuse me. Look, we don't live in a world where you sign a contract and then you play out your contract because you're a man of your word. It's just not where we are in today's era. What we are right now, hold on, sorry, my phone's going off. Normally I do a little do not disturb, so I apologize. And now I got a little sidetracked. Oh, okay, yeah. We don't live in a world where Haason Reddick signs a contract and then you just play out the years that you signed for because you're a man of honor. When you outdo your contract, you start to negotiate differently in the middle of your deal. Well, this was known before last season, and Haason came back and didn't really cause any trauma or any drama to the locker room. He just went about his business, and he balled out with his guys and went to training camp knowing that the thing was looming. He wasn't happy, but he still showed up. This was known for a long time, and Howie still thought that this was the best way to go about his business. I think that that's absolutely crazy. So Adam Schefter on March 29th, which was 2 days ago, threw out the tweet that the Eagles are trading edge rusher Haason Reddick to the New York Jets for a conditional 2026 third-round pick that could become a second-round pick, sources tell ESPN. The 2026 pick becomes a second if Reddick has 67.5% play time this season, 10 more sacks. If not, it's a 2023 third. If he hits those numbers, though, I'm pissed off because those numbers would help out this team. I don't get happy because, hey, that third becomes a second now. No! I get mad because that means there's 10 plus sacks. that you don't have on your line. That means that 68% of the snaps and plus more, if he plays more than 67.5, is now distributed to less talent. Less talent. I want great talent. And it's not as if it comes with as big of a risk as they are alluding to. I don't know why they are so scared about his age, as if he will, at worst, and this is at worst, I think if it did happen to go south, outside of injury, which could happen to anybody, if it happens to be where he doesn't live up to his expectation on a year where he gets extended or whatever, 9.5 sacks, a bad year for him is double-digit sacks right now. If somehow it got worse, it's 9.5. I mean, come on. I'm talking about Nolan Smith maybe sniffing 5. 5. We're talking a horrendous garbage year being double that. They did not process this properly. I'm telling you, they did not. Especially if he plays on the 1-year deal, and then that's what he is with the New York Jets, and they don't even extend him. Here's more from Adam Schefter. Haason Reddick does not have a new deal with the Jets and is now entering the last year of his contract. If the Jets don't extend him and he leaves in free agency, the Jets would get a comp pick, so they're giving up a pick, and if they lose him, they would get one back. That's Howie Roseman 101. That's Joe Douglas playing Howie Roseman's game and throwing it right back in your face. So it's not as if Haason Reddick wanted out of Philadelphia. It did seem like he wanted to be here as long as the money was right. And there's no way that he doesn't deserve to get that right money. It's very silly, especially someone who is extremely savvy in the money department. And don't tell me he's not worth 25 if he wanted 25. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. There's not many pass rushers better than him. It's just the truth. There's a few. Yes, there's a few. But he blindfolded walks into 30-plus sacks in 30-plus games. People don't do that. And you know what I kept hearing? He sucks in the run game. That's what I heard all night last night, taking calls. He sucks in the run game. First off, the job of a general manager is to utilize a skill set properly in what they do well. Haason Reddick gets to the quarterback. That's a negative play. Constantly putting a team in position where 1st and 10 becomes 2nd and 14. He does his celebration with the thumbs down. To act as if someone struggles a little bit in the run game. Bryce Huff blows in the run game. If you're going to get angry about Haason Reddick in the run game, wait until you watch Bryce Huff in the run game. Oh, my God. I'm just telling you. I'm warning you. I'm giving you warning shots. So that's already off the table because the guy they brought in to fill that role is worse in the run game than Haason Reddick. But it wasn't an issue when you had Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. It wasn't an issue when you had someone at linebacker like, come on, I'm drawing a blank here, Chicago, TJ Edwards. When you have other guys surrounding Haason Reddick, which is then the job of the general manager to properly assess. You brought in Linval Joseph. You brought in Sue. There are guys. Jordan Davis is supposed to be a stud, which is a Howie Roseman draft pick that is supposed to actually be a phenomenal run stopper. So you live with Haason Reddick getting 16 sacks, 14 sacks, 13 sacks, and then others do their job. So Haason's job is get to the quarterback. Then there are other jobs that stop the run. Well, we live in this world now where it's like this guy has to do, he just has to be elite everywhere. He doesn't have a little bit of a flaw in one area, but then he makes up for it by swiping offensive linemen to the ground and getting to the quarterback with ease 16 times in a season. So I hate that narrative. I just hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And when I tweet it out, I want to hear your thoughts. And we'll take some phone calls on the Anytime Hotline in 1 second here. But I got this response to my tweet promoting that we were going to do this show and saying to call in, text in. And it says here that I like Reddick a lot. This is Matt. And I would have loved to have him here, but he might not fit scheme going forward with Vic Fangio. If you're Vic Fangio, and this is all hypothetical, but if you're Vic Fangio and you watch Haason Reddick play and you think to yourself, nah, I can't do that. You're a bad defensive coordinator. I mean, there's just no sugarcoating it. If you're a defensive coordinator and you can't work with Haason Reddick's skill set because it, quote, doesn't fit your scheme, you suck at your job. There's no good defensive coordinator in the NFL that thinks, I can't make that guy work with what I do. I mean, I don't know what more you could want. Oh, but I could work with Bron. Oh, yeah, Nolan Smith, I'm ready for. Haason Reddick? Nah. But yet Bryce Huff is a yes. That's where it doesn't add up. Any of these arguments, well, Haason Reddick can't do X, Y, and Z. Haason Reddick isn't built for X, Y, and Z. So then no reason to pay Bryce Huff. There's no reason to pay Bryce Huff. So I really hated that. Here's a couple more tweets in. Steven D'Angelo says, it was an awful trade. It makes the defense worse and definitely pisses me off a lot. Howie has still done a great job this offseason, but this was a horrendous move. And I agree with you there. It's not as if I hate every single move by Howie Roseman, but I definitely hate this move. He doesn't bat 1,000. I can give you examples of when he screws up. I believe this is an example of when he screws up. And I heard John Ritchie today. He was asked a question about Jordan Davis or Nolan Smith, and who does he have more faith in moving forward? And he said Nolan Smith. I was stunned by that. Man, is that a smack in the face for Jordan Davis? That would be bad. If Nolan Smith outperforms Jordan Davis, you know what I think ends up happening? Both picks are a flop. And I was actually, at the time of the draft, I didn't hate the Nolan Smith trade. I actually remember and put my hand up, and I probably was wrong then, but I said even with that first round pick, if it happened to be Nolan Smith, if they didn't trade up, if Jalen Carter didn't fall, if Nolan Smith was the pick in just a general sense where they didn't make any moves with their draft pick, I could live with it. Well, I'm glad that didn't happen because I'd be aggravated, and now it's showing that I'm not writing these guys off by any means, but my ceiling for Jordan Davis is higher than it is for Nolan Smith. If Jordan Davis is worse than Nolan Smith, then man, do we have a problem. Do we have a problem? All right, my guy Rush Joy over at Snow the Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast, as he says. Rush Joy says, it's wild that we got worked up about a potential trade. We're told it was unlikely, and then he gets dealt to the team you signed his replacement from. Just odd. Remember, Jeffrey Lurie not too long ago, it'll play itself out in a very good way. Unless he views that second-round pick, a third-round pick as a very good way, he lied to us. He lied to us big time. And I am a big fan of Jeffrey Lurie. I think he's done a tremendous job with this franchise and as an owner and just a good person. And I think he does a lot of things very, very well. He lied to us. He lied to us. Remember, there's a reason why the Eagles launched the news when they did. It was all predetermined because they know that we'd be outraged, and rightfully so outraged. Okay, let's go to the phones. Let's take a couple calls here, and let's hear from you on Haason Reddick.
Rhodes, man, I am not happy with the return for the Haason Reddick trade. I mean, I'm not a fan of it to begin with. I mean, you've got an elite level edge rusher in your building who's one of only 2 players with 4 straight double-digit sacks. The other guy is Myles Garrett. And you just let him walk out the door for a third that could be a second in a couple of years. I mean, I think we're going to severely miss him. I think people are overrating Huff. He was great last year, but with the uptick in snaps he's going to get, I don't think his efficiency is going to be close to Reddick. Sweat's decent, but Sweat makes me want to drive. He makes me want to drive myself up a wall watching him blow contain constantly and give up boots left and right. And then Nolan Smith has a lot of potential, but he's still too raw. He's not even ready to begin to fill his shoes being left. So, especially us in a win now situation, man, it's just tough. I think we're going to miss his consistency and his production both on and off the stat sheet. And just the return for him was not what it should have been. We'll see. I hope he goes on a warpath for New York next year. Just sucks to see him go, especially a local product like that. But, good luck to him. It'll work to our benefit if he does go off, but not happy with it at all.
I'm not happy with it either. And yeah, I wish for him to be fantastic, not just because of the return the Eagles would be bigger, but just because to stick it to Howie Roseman for screwing up and to justify my feelings for why I am so passionate about this loss of Haason Reddick. So I do wonder why the market was the market for Haason, but just because the league doesn't value him, it doesn't mean the league is right, because I constantly hear that from the other side. Well, what does it tell you that they didn't get a first-round pick for a premier talent? They weren't getting a lot of assets for someone that you deem is unbelievable. Well, let's use Bryce Huff as the example. Bryce Huff wasn't valued by the league enough to get drafted. He's an undrafted player. TJ Edwards was not valued enough around the league to get drafted, right? Jalen Hurts was projected to be a fourth-round pick, middle of maybe the draft. Well, he's a franchise quarterback right now. He wasn't valued enough to be a first-round pick. Now he gets a big, massive deal, and he's a franchise quarterback that outdueled Pat Mahomes in a Super Bowl that he lost. So just because the league doesn't value him doesn't mean the league is right. So I don't agree that the league doesn't want to give up X, Y, and Z for Reddick, but at the same time, if they're not fighting for him like that, then they have the right to make it a third or a second round pick. We are the beneficiaries of that sometimes when you're Howie Roseman, so sometimes you just have to play what the market is and utilize that the best of your capabilities, and Joe Douglas is doing that right now, but that doesn't tell me that they are right to get rid of him because other teams aren't calling at will and fighting over one another to get to Haason Reddick. That tells me that they're foolish. There's a lot of bad general managers out there. There's a lot of general managers that have no idea how to utilize the cap properly, so they think, oh, I can't pay him $25 million a year, yet the $25 million a year in Howie Roseman's world is manipulated differently. People always freak out about, well, now Jalen Hurts is getting paid. Go look at how this thing is structured. He's getting paid $13 million on the hit this year. Next year, it's $21 million. I mean, Dak Prescott's touching, what, 50, 60, $40 million a year? Howie Roseman is a magician. So to not make this work is aggravating me because there are ways to make this thing work. It's just the truth. There's ways to make this work, and they're not. That's why it hurts me, too. It would be different if I truly... They can't. They just can't. I'm sorry. They just can't. But they can. They can figure this out. And whether it was with Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat, and they had him all here. They did. They had him all here. Let him play out that last year, whether he's happy, unhappy. If he's going to do it for the Jets, then make him do it here. Find a way. Or if it's without Bryce Huff, you just signed Haason Reddick, that would have been a better move. The only way that this would make sense for a long term is if they came out and stated, we're not trying to win. So we're going to sell off some of our older pieces. We lost Kelsey. We lost Fletch. We lost some of our leaders. We're going to gain a bunch of assets, and we're going to restart this whole entire thing and restructure it and get young. If that's the case, then fine. But that's not what they're doing. They're trying to win right now. So if they wanted to go play the long game and they came out and publicly stated it, then I might not agree. I might not think that's smart, but it's more along the lines of they're open and honest with their strategy and their plan. I don't know what their plan is. I think it's to compete, right? But they're choosing the wrong people to do it. That irritates me. Let's take another one.
Hey, bro. It's first-time caller, long-time watcher. Honestly, with the Haason Reddick thing, I feel like it's a wait and see. I think it doesn't make us better this year.
Nope.
Unless he makes a legitimate trade for another star or bring somebody in.
You'd have to pay them.
I think it could be a good long-term one. I don't know if you could just let him walk for nothing. I don't think there was any way they were re-signing him. And if that turns into a 2026 Jets high second-round pick, I mean, that's more than you could ask for a 30-year-old, even star.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait, you know? I understand that there could be more things down the road that happen because of this, but until I see that, I think they screwed up. And I doubt that whoever comes in here would be more impressive to me than what Haason Reddick brings. I mean, Haason Reddick, like, what do they not see about Haason Reddick? There's not many in today's game that's better than him. 3 guys? 4 guys? Think about how many defensive ends there are in football. 3 guys. 4 guys might be better than Haason Reddick. What more can you ask for than that if you're a general manager? I don't know. Something's not adding up to me. Something feels off. Maybe the relationship went sour. I don't know. But if that's the case, that's on Howie, who I say is phenomenal with money, phenomenal in trades, phenomenal in finding value, not a good people person. And sometimes that really backfires, and I wonder if that backfired here with Hassan Reddick. All right, everybody, those are my thoughts. I appreciate the love and support. Thank you all so much. Let me know how you're feeling down below. By the way, if you are listening to this on YouTube, you could take any show that I do on the road with you, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, all your podcasting platforms. And if you utilize those platforms, if you can leave a 5-star rating and a review, it will go a very long way with the algorithms. So I just want to throw that out there. Thank you guys all so much, and we'll be talking very, very soon.